We are live, back in the game. I wish this was going to be one of those chats where we talk about a whole bunch of fun stuff and how awesome life is and where we're going and what we're doing. But when I contacted you guys, it was because, you know, everybody knows I hate snow and cold weather because I was born in Niagara Falls, New York. And then I started reading about what's happening in Texas, and I was like, is this a joke? Then Brent sent me a video, and then I talked to 44 while he was, weren't you standing in line someplace?
Yeah, I was standing outside HEB for about 3 hours just to get into a half-empty store. So, yeah, no bread, no milk, no, what else? No eggs. They only had maybe about 8 rolls, eight loaves of potato bread. So, yeah, that definitely was something. No water. That was something. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I think he can hear you. I think he just muted his mic.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just muted myself.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, it definitely sucked. It hadn't snowed down here for 11 years. So that was special.
Different people know both of you from different things here on the channel, but tell them who you are, and then I want you to give a quick introduction. I'll even let you, now listen, 44, I'm gonna let you plug your website, but I'm not gonna put anything in the description, and you're not gonna get me thrown off YouTube.
No, I got you. That's fine. So
tell them who you are.
All right. So for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I go by the moniker the 44. I'm the owner of Enhanced Arsenal Platinum. So that's www.eaplatinum.is. And basically, if you're like on TRT or HRT or just want to get big as hell, that's the website to reach out to. So, yeah, so I kind of operate below the radar, except for, of course, this video right here. But yeah, I'm pretty open with it. So, you know, I'm not really concerned about that. But yeah, if you've seen me on YouTube, you see my videos, I had like a big channel some years ago, but you know, there's some haters out there, but they still can't stop me because now I own a whole company. So way to go.
They motivated you. They motivated you into just owning everything, so you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah. They just don't understand that, you know, as a Marine who served for 24 years, you're not going to discourage me, you know? So
24 years.
I don't waste time with that conversation with people that are my age and older.
I'm sorry. There's something
just because their opinions are already set, and you're not going to change their mind. You might catch a couple.
I have something that popped up there. I didn't know it was 24 years because I keep forgetting how old you are, because there's no way anybody would know how old you are because you're still an extraordinarily good physical specimen.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm 50 years old, brother. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is. But,
you know,
yeah, I know sometimes
he's somebody I go to when I'm having questions about my supplement regimen or things like that, about just the concepts. And he talks a lot about the mindset of lifting weights, what you have to do to get what you want to be. There are a few cherries you can put on top, but there is no cheat in the game.
No, you still got to put in the hard work. It doesn't matter what, you know, exogenous hormones you might, you know, partake of. If you ain't lifting hard, heavy, and furious, you're still going to look like a cupcake. So that's all there is to it.
I'm going to actually post, we did an in-depth discussion on the Patreon that I can post a link to as well. But while I'm pulling that up, let's go ahead and Brent, give it to him.
So like 44, I was in the military, I was in the Navy for 14 years. So I can completely understand what you're talking about. I'm a data scientist, so I do much more on the analytics side. Big data processing, AI, and machine learning is what I do.
Well, he makes it sound not nearly as complex and sexy as it is, because he's popped in on some of our chats with some information that he quickly pulled up with his vast database of who did what, when, and where.
No, I can tell. Just the description alone lets everybody know he's very cerebral. So, you know, hey, I can completely get it.
Well, I tried. Actually, when I was in college, I tried out for the SEAL training program, but I didn't make it. I didn't make the cut. So you had to go to a selection process before you could go to buds. Because I was an officer, so I was lieutenant commander. So you couldn't just like sign up and pass a PT test and then go. You had to be selected. It was a little bit more rigorous, and so I just didn't make the cut.
Yeah, no, I'm totally familiar with that type of stuff. And I mean, hell, either way, you know, hey, you did 14 years. That's more than a lot of people, you know, a lot of these angry people running around nowadays, you know. So, hey, my hat's off to you, brother.
Well, I called both of you guys because you're in Texas. What cities are you both in, respectively?
Go ahead. I'm in the San Antonio area.
Dallas, Irving area, which is what they call the mid cities. It's between Dallas and Fort Worth. It's right by DFW Airport.
So let's do it this way. When did the snow start, and when did the city realize they have a problem, not just a cute little, oh, isn't that pleasant?
So I was in the DFW area, and they started rolling blackouts Sunday night, Monday morning, about 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is when they started. Because San Antonio is on a different electrical system than we are up north. It's just different. It's regulated, while up here it's not regulated.
But it's not regulated well down here at all. So
Wait. When we say rolling blackouts, explain that.
So what they did is they would shut off the power to certain areas for a particular time. Because what happened is the load got too big for the grid to actually accommodate everybody. So what they had to do is they had to shut off electricity to different areas for periods of time so the entire grid wouldn't go black.
yeah, so I was sitting down here, and at about, I want to say with the 10 o'clock news, well, just prior to 10 o'clock, a news flash popped across the screen, and they told us that extreme cold weather front was coming in and that there was a lot of snow behind it. And I kind of sat there in disbelief until I saw the radar pop up. And then I was like, wow, this is going to be special. And I went to bed, and probably around the same time that he had discussed, I woke up at about 3 a.m. freezing my butt off, you know. So I mean, in San Antonio, it's pretty temperate. So I go to bed, you know, just wearing whatever. And I woke up literally shivering, and I went, all the power was out. And I don't know what type of intervals that they did it in, but I was getting pretty frustrated because the power would pop on and then it would go out, like, I'd say 2 minutes later.
So they were doing the rolling blackouts because everybody turned on their heating sources at once. Is that about it?
That's partially it, but it's also the type of heat they have. There's a lot of heat pumps here in North Texas, and they don't react well to severe cold. But it also depends on the type of heat pump you have. So, I mean, how a heat pump's designed, it's just not going to react well to extremely cold weather. And so you really need like a gas furnace or something like that, which a lot of people don't have unless they're in the panhandle, something like that. And so it consumes more and more electricity to produce a little bit more heat. And what happens is it was consuming so much demand that they had to do that. But there's also a controversy on how much power the wind turbines and the solar power was producing on the grid. There's still a controversy about that. Nobody has really told the numbers on what power sources were producing how much power. So it's starting to get very political here in Texas right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, hello to BK from the Rockies. Always good to see you. And two, the Texas power grid, this is what I'm told, and I want to know from people who are living there. I'm told that the grid in Texas is separate from the grid that powers the rest of the United States?
That's what they say. They say that Texas is the only independent, non-federally regulated energy commission, or whatever they would call it. And they say that due to this non-regulation, certain checks and balances weren't put in place. And apparently the guys who own the majority of the electrical power in the state of Texas live elsewhere. So my understanding is that the largest portion of energy producing failures actually stemmed from petroleum. And then they said that some numbers came out saying that the turbines accounted for about 10% of the power loss, whereas the petroleum accounted for roughly about 33%. Now, I know in the city in which I live, the entire city runs off of electric. You can't, if you want gas, you better go buy a propane tank. So when the grid went down, when they shut it down, it was, nobody had heat. I mean, you had water, but it was, cold water or whatever. But I mean, no power. And like I said, for a rolling systematic blackout, it was very irregular. Like it would literally come on for 2 minutes, be off for 2 hours, come on for 5 minutes, be off for 30 minutes, and then be on for 2 hours. And then you'd have to freeze the rest of the night. It was literally 21 degrees inside my home.
So 21 degrees. Whoa, that's death. I'm reading about children freezing to death.
There's one
reading
child from the cold. Yeah, that's what I know of. I haven't looked at the data when it comes to that, but there's at least one child that died.
Yeah, there was some lady in Houston, her and her daughter. They went to the car. I'm not laughing at them, but I mean, it's just, they sat in the car in the garage and they died from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Because if you don't know any different, if you're part of the world, you've never known any different, it doesn't seem. Let me do this. How you doing, Craig? Actually, Craig and I did something earlier because Craig is a Florida man, and I say that with all the humor. He's a Florida man, and we did Storm Prepper, and we talked about things people can do to put in their homes. And of course, it all depends on where you live. But who would, even if I was a prepper in Texas, and I know preppers in Texas, I don't think I would have thought to put thermal blankets in my prep kit if I'm where you are, 44. If I was in where you live, it wouldn't have occurred to me to shrink wrap thermal blankets.
No, and the storm hit so fast. Like I have an underground sprinkler system, and the piping on the side of my house just burst. Not the plastic piping, the actual metal. Like it just burst because everything froze so quickly. And I was out there. The outside temperature, it was cooler in the house than it was outside. I actually went out and repaired the damage to the water system on the side of my house in a t-shirt. And it was probably about 33 degrees outside, but like I said, it was 21 inside my house. So it was just kind of ignorant. Let me put it to you this way. I plan on moving from Texas, like I'm probably going to move to a more temperate place, in the next couple
Brazil is nice, brother.
Yeah, I know. I've been shopping that idea, but it's just the whole medical care and stuff like that.
We can have that conversation, but the reality is, and this is not going to go on to an American healthcare versus the healthcare in the rest of the civilized world. Healthcare in Brazil is more affordable than it is where you are.
No, I believe it. Trust me. Went to the doctor and got a $700 bill for hardly anything, and it's just, as a military retiree,
But I thought once you retired, you didn't have to pay for medical anymore.
You still have to do co-pays. Nothing's free anymore. They changed that. It used to be an outstanding medical system that they had in place, but
my dad got into Vietnam. And I remember growing up, him dealing with things like alcoholism and some of the things with that. He would always complain about having to go to the VA and go down there. But I don't remember us having to come out of pocket for stuff.
No, that was then. This is now. And I'm, like I said, I did 24 years and I've been retired for a while. So the thing of it is they changed that system. Like they didn't even tell me, like dental care, it went away last January 1st of 2020. And I never got a notification. I called up wanting to make a dental appointment. And they were like, hey, you got to find an outside provider, and then there's an enrollment period, which starts in like September, I want to say.
Come to Brazil, we'll get you a whole new grill. Come in Friday. By the next weekend, I made them let me keep my gap because they were fighting me. She was like, we're not going to charge you any more money if you let me fix it. I'm like, it's not broken.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. But I'm telling you,
Texas had a problem.
Yeah, as much as I'm proud of being a Texan, I'm getting the hell out of Texas because Texas is supposed to be warm. When they flashed across the news that Texas was colder than Alaska, hell, it's time to go.
So, I don't have a well, and I don't know how wells work, but I'm guessing the pipes inside the well broke as well. They expanded too quickly because of ice.
I imagine so. I mean,
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I mean, I don't ever want to go through that crap again.
So
natural disaster. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Home Depot and Lowe's and all the hardware stores, they were sold out of generators a week prior to the storm coming.
Yeah, that's true. Because I sure went to go buy one. It's like they didn't have anything, And I figured if I go buy one of the expensive ones, then they'll have one left at least, and they were all gone.
Okay. Well, let's do this. We know the horror that is the snow, but what I'm getting feedback on now is, like you said, apparently some of the people who manage the grid don't even live in the state, which in and of itself may or may not be a sign of corruption. But where does the government fall down? And oh my goodness, read this. This is truly a blip. Texas is going back to warm up eventually, right? I'd like to believe so.
Well, let me say this much. Today, it's 77 degrees. You see, I'm wearing a tank top. The other day it was in the 30s. Like a high of 33. 34. And then today it's 77 degrees, which is totally stupid. But hey, I'm appreciative of it.
I know a few people trying to move to Texas. They might think again now.
Yeah, they might want to. I'm telling you.
Bring some Huskies.
Yeah. Where else are you going to go? Like a buddies of mine, we were talking up north. If you're talking like in the northern states, Washington, Montana, Maine, Vermont. I mean, they have grids that are designed to compete with the cold weather, but you got to live in the cold in order to do that. I mean, 44 was right. It snows here like every 3 to 4 years, roughly. And you have a bad cold snap like once or twice in a decade. But the question is it worth it to live here if you have just those small snaps every so often? And it's a trade-off, right? So you have an independent power grid, but if you want to winterize the independent power grid for snaps that happen at most every 3 to 4 years or worse every decade, twice in a decade, is the juice worth the squeeze on that one?
That's true. But my understanding, I know that they said that they had been basing, because I mean, you know how it is in Texas. You pay out the Yahoo for electricity, and they got service fees for this and service fees for that, and they tax this and they tax that. And if you actually look at your electric bill, they're not charging you that much for the electricity used, right? Like, for instance, they take the average of the neighborhood. So, I could leave my lights off all day long, right? If my neighbors keep their lights on and everything plugged up, it doesn't matter. I'm still paying, but it's not that bad. But where they get you, they charge you, fees for, maintaining the grid. They charge you taxes, all kinds of different service fees. So I'd say a good 60% of my bill is additional fees. So I'm just wondering what the hell they're doing with the money if once every 10 years a damn snowstorm comes through and it shuts everything down. I mean, I figure that's not that big of an investment, just winterize the crap one time, take a loss in their profit margin that one time, and then just do maintenance, every 5 years because of the climate here. And they're not going to lose that much out of their pocket, in my opinions.
So there's also additional things you have to consider too, is the federal regulations on updating and upgrading power plants. Technically, a winterization could hit a flag on updating, and some of the laws, depending on what type of power plant you have, if you upgrade one part of it, you have to upgrade the entire thing, which is not cost effective as well. And so you can't just like upgrade one part or winterize like some pumps or some pipes or update the distribution system to handle cold weather. If it hits that trigger, then you're going to have to update the entire plant and do that. So I don't know where the regulations stand on that one.
We're going to find out soon.
Yeah.
Greg had a question on fixing people's utility bills. I don't think the storm was enough to really affect anybody's utility bill that much, was it?
No, there's guys that got $17,000 bills.
Wait, how did that happen?
Yeah, I've heard about $10,000 bills. My damn.
Wait. But how long was the storm, and how do you rack up that kind of bill in one storm?
It's because they had to pay for electricity to be shipped in from other plants, and so you have switching costs and fees that come in from other states. So even though Texas grid is independent, we're still connected to the national grid. And so if you have to buy electricity from, let's say, California or Nebraska or New York, it's going to be more expensive.
A guy remixed the roller. He said, how much money we getting? I don't know if the government's going to jump in and subsidize this stuff. I would like to see whether or not the federal government can force the Texas government in any way through legislature to say, hey, you guys decided to be Lone Rangers, who was black, in a state and be all by yourself. You know, you guys are going to have to pony up on these bills for people.
Now, that would make sense. I mean, that's what our elected officials chose, and I'm sure they got pretty good kickbacks behind it. So yeah, let them foot the bill, because I'm not going to lie. If I get a $17,000 electric bill, right? Yeah, I'm going to extract $17,000 out of somebody's ass. I'm not going to lie.
He's going to be down. He's going to be down at City Hall. Excuse me. Can you point me to the governor or the mayor, whoever's in? I know the governor's in a palace, but is the mayor in? I'm sorry. Do you have an appointment? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it does. I think those were co-op plans, but like in San Antonio, I used to live in San Antonio, and in Irving, I just pay for my own unit because I live in an apartment complex. So like I don't pay for my neighbor's electricity. I only pay for my own usage. So I think it's different depending on where you live too.
Yeah, I mean, it's different.
I just got my electric bill. Hold on. Let's see. My Sao Paulo, Brazil electric bill for the month due on March 1st. Hold on. Let me put this in. Let's see. So first, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen for you guys so you can actually see, highlight it here. I don't know if you guys can. Anybody see what that says? That says $89.98.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay. That says $89.98. But when we do the magic of how much is that in USD?
So
look at that.
15 bucks.
$15 electric bill for my apartment.
That's crazy. That is ridiculous. I just paid my bill that was due. That was just under $400. You know.
So look at this. Price burden, free market failure. Yeah. Oh, Christopher James Young, who's my neighbor down the road here, his was 25. And BK said, you're going to flex on the Texas leadership with the electric bill. Yeah, wouldn't even blame you.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't even blame you for it, because the word unfair is wrong. It should be, I would say, criminal. I would say it's criminal to have that happening. You know, it's criminal for this situation to even occur. And the atrocity of it isn't just the weather, it's how people are going to be treated afterwards. It's how many people are going to be told, hey, we all have to share the burden. And then you're like, wait a minute, what am I paying taxes for? If when something like this happens, not only do we have death on our hands, but we have a situation where the government is sending people 17 or 10, because here's the problem. They're going to have some kind of program for debt relief, but they're going to low advertise it to make sure not enough people hear about it so they can say they gave people an opportunity.
Yep. Now, there are actually FEMA programs out there in place, but you do need to go to, the FEMA website. I don't know what it is, FEMA.org or whatever. But if you go to the FEMA website, they are actually giving grants, and you can, if you lost income due to this or had the inability to go to work, my understanding is that you can get a loan for like $30,000, interest-free loan for like 30 grand that you don't even have to start paying back until like a year later, something like that. But because I have a family member who works for FEMA and they were telling me about this, but you know, I work for me, so as long as I got internet connection, you know, which even though the internet went down because the power went down, but you know, thanks to my cellular service, I was still able to make the world a slightly swoller place, you know. But you know, it's just stupid, you know. I feel for people that actually have 9 to 5s. It's I mean, you know, because like my son who's you know, who goes to college, you know, he came back and you know, he lives with me and stuff like that. He missed out on a whole week's worth of work because of the weather, you know. But they went ahead, his job, you know, he worked for a pretty decent company. They said, hey, basically it's like administrative time. So he got paid for that. But there are plenty of people out there who didn't get paid. And I think that there's a large, you know, contingency of Americans out there that are living check to check, you know, and this is definitely going to bite them in the ass at some point in time.
We're watching the collapse of so many things. Man of tomorrow, you're always welcome. There's always a chair for you at my table. Let's catch up again soon. Who also has a channel that I hope everybody goes and looks at. He gets in some really deep thought discussions on the state of many things. Did you get that question?
What was that?
That's for you, that question on the screen.
Man, you know, I'm half blind.
He
Am
said,
I a wrestler? No, I'm not a wrestler, bro. I just lift weights. I get up in the morning and I go straight to the gym for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, lift weights, and then I come back and do my business all day. Sometimes I'm talking to clients up until about 3 in the morning. It all depends. So,
and not to go off on a weightlifting tangent, but I recently started in the past couple of months I'll do a business call at 7 a.m. and be in the gym from 8 until 9:30 or 10.
yeah.
And fasted weightlifting, we talk about fasted cardio, but to wake up, maybe have a banana, maybe a quick bowl of oatmeal and hit the gym, the weights hit different.
They do. They do.
They do. So what do you two think is going to be the process through which, I mean, of course, we're not lawmakers, but the federal government has to hold Texas accountable somehow. You know, do you think it was a failure of infrastructure, or do we look at this, as Brent, you said, it might just be a blip, something that no one can really have prepared for?
Well, they could definitely improve the power grid. So that's definitely one thing that they can do. The question is at what cost? Because electricity is already expensive because it's an independent power grid. So that's really the question, is at what cost do you want to improve the grid? Because Texans, even now in general, a huge generalization, is fiercely independent, like on the point of being assholes sometimes. So do they want to pay more for their electric bill to winterize or not? So the governor's talking about the state legislature paying to winterize the power plants. I don't know how far that's going to go, but you can definitely improve the stability of the power grid because they do it in other states that have worse weather than Texas. So it definitely can be done. So
spectrum. Like I was talking to another San Antonian that drove all the way from the less fortunate side of town and was over at my HEB standing talking to me. And they said that, you know, they didn't have power, they didn't have water, you know, but certain big businesses, they managed to have power. So, I mean, it seems to be a disparity in, you know, the fairness as far as how they do certain things. And, you know, I don't think that it's right to ask, you know, citizens, you know, to pay for that when the state makes so much money. I mean, we've got revenue out the ass, you know, we can direct, you know, a small percentage of our, you know, economic growth towards, you know, updating our electrical, you know, our power grid, right? And it wouldn't cost anybody a dime out of pocket. I mean, we could just, tell these major corporations and stuff like that, hey, we're going to put a 1% tax on you, for 1 year. I mean, we have big businesses in my city that, as a ploy to get them to come to our city,
Right.
they don't have to pay any taxes for like 5 years. If we can make somebody tax exempt from city taxes, local taxes for 5 years, then why can't we just add a 1% tax to corporate America, to big business, right, that are making literally billions, right? Why can't we just do a 1% tax on them and improve the power grid as a whole and benefit all Texans?
Wow.
No, I agree. I'm more concerned about how the water issue, because the electricity will eventually come back on, and the weather is varying enough that it will get warmer fairly soon. But like, I had my city pipe burst right outside my complex. We had the fire main burst in my complex, and 2 places where potable water burst in my complex. And so you had in Houston, they had pipes freeze, so there was no water pressure, and they asked people to close the tap to have more water pressure in Houston when the temperature was getting colder, which caused more pipes to burst.
Wow.
And it's crazy what people were doing. There was a professional plumber who got on national television and told people on the news to close the faucet when the temperature was getting colder. And like, everybody who lives up north knows you never ever do that. Never ever. Never ever.
No. And now, for those who don't know, one of the reasons I'm talking about this even is I was born in Niagara Falls, New York. For those who don't know, let me show you guys what my hometown looks like during the winter. And now, this is not a crazy winter. This is a normal winter. The Niagara Falls is one of the wonders of the world. It can get so cold that it stops flowing. Hundreds of millions of almost incalculable millions of tons of water pressure. It can get so cold, it'll drop hard. It'll drop so hard you could drive across it. Not that you should.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when people talk about that cold and how badly, because I always tell people it's much worse to live in a place that's extremely cold than it is to live in a place that's extremely hot. Man of Tomorrow said it's called an alternative minimum tax.
Oh, AMT? That's horrible.
Here we go. All right, I'll bite. Why is that horrible?
It doesn't have to do with the concept of alternative minimum tax. The problem is how it's regulated and who the AMT goes to. That's the problem. Is that there's middle class can get caught up in AMT just as easily as the wealthiest 1% caught up in AMT. So it's not just that's use alternative minimum tax. It's like, how are you going to regulate it? What are the triggers? And who's going to get caught up in it? So, I mean, they tried it and it didn't work.
We're going to have a different discussion about that, and I'd like to invite MOT to that discussion. We've got Michael Sullivan saying, making sure energy companies winterize the equipment is a regulation issue. Don't believe tax is really necessary. Just need to tell them to do it and verify that they do it.
That's very true.
It's true. They can do that. The cost is going to be passed to the consumers.
And that's extremely true, because that's what they will do. Just like they charge you system maintenance off of, the majority of the wiring and the cables and stuff that have been in ground for, decades. They're not going to sit there and rip up the power grid. They're never in the history of that, and I'm 50 years old. I've never seen where they just shut, a block down at a time, or several blocks down at a time, and upgrade the wiring and the cables and all of that in a timely manner. So I think that it's just basically a sympathy tax, an excuse to pad their pockets, because if you think about it, they're not doing, I mean, what do we have to maintain? You know, as long as you have, you know, iron or copper or brass lines, right? Electricity is going to flow through it. They will have to be changed out intermittently. However, when, you know, there's no need to charge us for that every month, you know, off of something that they're going to repair every 5 to 7, maybe 10 years, you know?
Yeah, but here's the other point. Everybody has to figure out ahead of time who's going to foot the bill where. And everybody wants a guarantee that it's not going to be them or their constituency that has to foot that bill.
Well, I'm going to say this much. As far as Americans, and I've already done all the calculations on it, right? So I sit in the highest tax bracket, right? And it's like, I don't mind paying more taxes. And this is going to sound really socialist right here. And I'm not a socialist because, like I said, I did 24 years, you know, in the Marines. I love America, right? But what I'm saying is this, right? I wouldn't care if they hike taxes up to 30% across the board, as long as the consumer market adjusted their prices accordingly and made everything more affordable for Americans. Because me personally, you know, I don't think that certain things should be out of reach to anybody. If America can send billions of dollars overseas to supposedly stabilize the global, you know, situation, you know, the geopolitical situation, right, abroad, then why do we have hungry Americans? Why do we have homes in America during a freak winter storm without power? You know, if we're supposed to be the best country on earth, then we should be living that every day. There shouldn't be a hungry child. There shouldn't be meals on wheels for the elderly. There shouldn't be anything like that. We shouldn't be sitting here talking about Social Security going bankrupt, you know, in the next 20, 30 years. You know, there's enough money being generated in our economy, right? You know, both domestically and abroad, that all of these should be non-factors. There should not be anything that interrupts our day-to-day activities as Americans in this country. That's just my personal thought. And I know I live in Texas, so everybody and their mama just got their boxers shoved halfway up their ass behind what I just said.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I would agree with you. My question is if and only if I had confidence that the money would go to the places where it needs to go.
No, absolutely. And that's the damn shame because, see, our political system is flawed because we allow, you know, lobbyists and stuff like that. I mean, granted, you know, there are lobby groups out there that actually do what they're supposed to do. But then we have these politicians, you know, like that are in office. I mean, they should put a cap on how many terms they can hold office, because you get these career lifelong politicians, right? Like every politician in the state of Texas is a millionaire. How are they supposed to represent, you know, the people that are living, you know, the daily lives of average Texans? You know, they don't understand that. A lot of these, you know, people, they don't even live in the state of Texas. They you know, they're up in their office up in DC, so that way they can go to their meetings. They should be forced. They get expenses for travel. They should have to stay in their district, and then whenever something needs to happen up in DC, then they fly out there in advance. You know, they shouldn't be living up in Alexandria, you know, in some, you know, multi-million-dollar, you know, brownstone or whatever the hell they have up there, right? And then thinking of their state as a vacation spot. It shouldn't happen, you know. But every politician in Texas, there was a big report that came out like last year, and they're all millionaires, and that's ridiculous. You know, granted, I'm not gonna be mad at anybody for making a buck, right? But at the same token, right, you lose the feel for the people that you represent when you fail to, you know, live in their shoes. If I'm sitting there living, you know, on, you know, a 20-acre ranch, you know, and the only normal people I see day to day are the people who are my servants, right, who work for me on my ranch, my estate, then what am I doing? You know, if my wife can't take her ass in the kitchen and cook me a meal, and she's got, you know, a maid and a kitchen cooking staff and stuff like that to clean up for her and cook meals for her, then how does she know what it's like to be a mother of 3 that has to go out and work and stuff like that. How can I hear, if I'm that senator or representative, how can I represent my people when, you know, my old lady's not coming home tired and pissed off from work, having to deal with a shitty boss, you know? If I'm not out there actively in the streets talking to my voters, my constituents, then how am I supposed to have a feel for the people? And that's why, you know, like he said, you have to worry about if the funds are being misappropriated, because oftentimes these guys, they'll pad their pockets, they'll direct it where they want it to go, right? And I'm about to kick Ted Cruz in the fucking nuts, right? Because he's so fucking rich, right? That, I mean, the average Texan did not go to an Ivy League school, you know? His roommate said he was an asshole, right? So it's like, what the hell? This dude's been a prick his whole life. And then now he's an elected official here, been one, right? And he's supposed to represent, you know, you and I. And I'm not even going on to the whole, you know, the speech he gave in Georgia, because I could give a shit less, because if people in Georgia want to eat that up coming from a Texan, more power to them. But the thing of it is, he's not representative of the people in Texas. He's an asshole. You know, we're not assholes down here. Bottom line.
What's interesting is what he said is how it comes around to like plumbing and water and electricity is that a lot of funds are diverted into different places. And when you have consistent weather that's not really that cold, they're like, we don't really need to winterize plants. We don't really need to worry about the city plumbing, because if we want to do that, I mean, it's a really low priority. Or if we want to improve the power grid, it's like, do we really need to do that? Because I want to put money into other things. So the infrastructure isn't updated on a regular basis and maintained. And so every time you have a shock or something that's kind of a shock, then the entire infrastructure goes down. And it's exactly what you said, Yusef. It's like, who's going to pay for this? And how is it going to pay? Is the people going to pay for it? Is the state going to pay for it? Because we can always raise taxes, but there's differing opinions based on different PhD studies on who you're going to believe, if actually revenue increases or if it doesn't increase. So it's really interesting is that you have human behavior from a politician who wants to get more votes. So I'm going to spend money that gets me more votes. Necessarily spending money on a power grid and pipes that are 20 years old that can break if a cold freeze doesn't necessarily get me more votes until it breaks and I can blame somebody else for it and get them out of office so I can get more votes. It's just interesting.
Yeah, that's... Well, we got some comments that are interesting. Well, Craig said if you hit somebody's pockets enough, they start to work better or get a new job. And I agree with that, but then also Michael said, you're talking about a let them take idea. The wealthy are living in such different circumstances, they can't relate to the masses. And that's a real thing. The United States, for better or for worse, is a place where you can put yourself in a situation where it's not a common thing, and everybody wants to talk about the guys like the Steve Jobs and Amazon. Everybody believes that we shouldn't tax the wealthy because the average person who is a have-not, and I've talked about haves and have-nots, they don't understand that those cases are not what you think they are. Those are people who already come from situations of privilege. You just didn't know it, you know, and it's an awkward situation because we don't understand that. I don't believe you should tax anyone out of existence, but everyone paying their fair share, that's a real thing. Craig thought we through slide. No, nobody gets out of this one for free.
No, he's gonna get hammered for being in Mexico when everybody was freezing.
Yeah.
I heard he blamed his daughters for it. I didn't see the story.
I read that somewhere. He tried to put the bag on his children.
Yeah, he said, my children asked me if they could be in a warm place. So I said, okay, we'll go to Cancun.
That's a child's first thought. That's a child's first thought. I want to go to Cancun. No,
but he could have sent his wife and kids down there and nobody would have raised a fuss.
Exactly.
You know? He should have been out there with a damn snowplow, right? Visiting his damn constituents. That's what he should have been doing, you know, instead of ducking and dodging, using HPD to escort him through the airport, you know?
Yeah, he had the police escort. Like,
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. He's a moron. I mean, you got to be politically savvier than that.
Yeah,
You know, he's opened himself up to like shotguns in the chest, and it's going to be going on for a while, especially in this media environment where he doesn't really have a conservative media outlet. So he's just going to take it from every side.
Yeah, that dude is a totally inept moron. You know, like that. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. You know, and then you're a public servant. You know, and a lot of these politicians forget that. You know, and then they're more like literally. It's so funny because the elections, you know, just ended recently, right? And you don't. All they do is around here, they'll put up a sign with their name, right? But the biggest thing on the banner is Republican. And I'm not bashing Republicans. I'm not bashing, you know, political party, right? You vote how you want to vote. That's what America's all about, right? But when the party that you represent means more than who you are, there's a problem, you know? And everybody takes this conservative standpoint. But if you think about it, the majority of Texans, I feel, are more liberal as far as, you know, not political ideology, right? But, you know, the majority of Texans, if you look at, you know, the damn income rates and the differentiations in what people make across the state of Texas, you'll see that some of the people who are like Republicans, they really shouldn't be, you know, because they you know, like I told my buddy, you know, and when President Trump first got elected, I said, President Trump is a businessman. I hope he works out. However, he is a businessman, and in my opinion, not a very savvy one. I said, he's going to look out for corporate America, and he's going to look out for himself. And he was like very firm in his belief about, you know, Trump and stuff like that. And then he works for the government. And then they were talking about laying off or getting rid of and making easier to fire, you know, DOD employees. And all of a sudden he was pissed off. And I told him, I said, dude, that's who you voted for. You know, he doesn't recognize your woes because you're not in his tax bracket. You know, they don't understand that concept. You know, somebody who's been, you know, spoon fed their whole life, they don't understand what it's like to go out and punch a clock. They don't understand what it's like to suffer. They don't know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. Whereas the average Texan, right, even though this is a great state and it's one of the most affordable states in the United States, right, there's a lot of, you know, underpaid Texans in this state. There are people holding down 2-3 jobs just to make it, you know. So these millionaire politicians, they can't relate to that. You know, by no means am I suffering, but I never grew up with a spoon in my mouth, you know. So it's like, you know, I've had to work for everything that I ever had to earn, you know. Hell, I'd make a better politician than Ted Cruz, and I don't know jack shit. Like I said, he's the cerebral one. All I do is, you know, just fucking make people big as shit, you know. But I know more than Ted Cruz, you know. I know not to take my ass on vacation while all of my constituents are freezing their ass off and dying, you know. That right there should go in the Idiot Hall of Fame. They should make a motherfucking statue of his ass with his head shoved up his ass and put that shit on top of the Capitol building in Austin. That's what they should do for Ted Cruz.
And for more commentary, check out his YouTube channel.
But I do agree with 44. Is like Texans, traditionally known as conservative, very independent, but they have a huge heart for helping people in need, especially here in Texas. They'll help their neighbor if they need them to help out because they know how hard it is to survive here in Texas in an independent environment that Texas is. So I would agree with that. I mean, I say roughly independent upon the point of being assholes, but it's more about like I want to be independent because I want to choose my own destiny and have the option to choose what I want to do. But that also doesn't mean that I'm not going to help you do something. You know, if you're hurting or you're in need or you just need some help or you're my neighbor and your fence blew down or a tree fell on your roof, I'm going to help you because you're my neighbor. You know, why wouldn't I help you? So I think I agree with 44. I think Texans are much more liberal in their attitude as far as helping people and helping their neighbors and helping fellow Texans. They don't get a lot of credit for.
Yeah, if they were to come out with something, an initiative that would allow Texans to actually help Texans rather than somebody who's disenfranchised and so separated from the populace to sit there and try to tell us what's good based on, we don't have to have conservative views. We don't have to have democratic views or liberal views or leftist or, right-wing views. But, we should have, just like he said, Texans, we take pride in looking out for ourselves and each other. It doesn't matter what goes on, right? I'm sorry to say it, right? But if, Texas is that way, if you fuck with a Texan, then you're fucking with all of us, So I think that our political atmosphere and the way that we do things financially in Texas, as far as, the damn legislation, should be, towards benefiting Texans, not just the elite few, but Texans as a whole, from Laredo to Eagle Pass to the smallest border town, all the way up to the most expensive places to live in Texas. It's crazy. I know people from all walks of life, right? And one thing for certain, when the storm hit, we were all sucking wind. So it's like, I've been in states like Louisiana. Now you want to talk about a fucked up state. Louisiana is fucked up. Like they will cut the power. Like there will be a street. On one side of the street is predominantly Caucasian. On the other side of the street is predominantly African American. They will cut the power on the African American side, and they will leave the power on in the Caucasian side. That ain't how Texas rolls. We don't do that, because we're a big melting pot of sorts, right? But even in San Antonio, people on the south side of Texas, south side of San Antonio, they were without a lot of everyday necessities, simply because what? Because it was the less fortunate side of town, and I was freezing my ass off up here, but I'm sure I had it twice as good as people on the other side of town, but it's like we should have initiatives in everything that we do: legislation, the electrical regulation, oil industry, fishing industry. Everything should be beneficial towards Texans. I don't see why, we don't make a state tax that they direct things towards just, making things better, whether it be, not, I'm going to tell you like this, the education system in Texas sucks. They ain't teaching their kids shit. They're out of school more days than dang people, I swear it's like a church school because they're always at sabbatical. They're just out of school all the time. And that's where I'm about to piss people off again. These kids need to be in school more. I don't see why, summer break should be, 1 month. Keep their asses in school, let them learn something, because these kids aren't getting prepared for college. Then you send all these guys and gals out there into the economy to get jobs, and they're not competitive, right?
Well, let's do this. What I want to do then is, because we've kind of ventured off Texas, which is what I really wanted to get into, but we've broken into a couple other branches that we need to get back together on. One was that tax issue that we ended up having a little bit of a disagreement with Brett on. I want to set that up, and I want to have that conversation. But talking about some of the disparities in states, that's a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Is just a thought. Imagine, like Texas, we don't have any state taxes, right? Imagine if we just made a 1% tax. Think of all the revenue that would generate. We go from nothing to something, just a meager 1%, right? Nobody could bitch or complain about that, right? And yet it would open up so much funding for things to improve the quality of life across the state. I would be for that. It's better than my proposal of taxing everybody at 30%, So I don't see why people can't get on board with that, But then you're going to have some guy, multimillionaire, bitching about 1% tax. If you look at the tax laws, they cap off at 100,000 anyways, right? So if you make 100,000 and you pay, let's say you pay $6,000 a year in tax, right? But if you make, 16 million, it still caps off at 100,000. So he's paying taxes on that 100,000. So he's paying the, a proportionate figure. So let's make a 1% state tax to go into emergency funds. So that way, even though the state is mostly corporate, right, we have, resources on hand. We have snow trucks just in the strange event that something happens. Our kids aren't dependent upon free lunches and stuff like that. I mean, it's too easy, but nobody wants to sit there and propose it because, like he said, they don't want to lose voters because the idea of proposing a new tax would be so unpopular that, heaven forbid, I mean, Ted Cruz would die kicking and screaming before he ever let that come out of his mouth.
Wow.
I have a little bit different point of view than 44, but we can save it for the other discussion. Because my point of view is basically from economics and finance. And so it's just a different point of view. So.
Well, listen to him because, like I said, he's the cerebral one. If you just want to pick heavy shit up, I'm your guy. But when it comes to brain and power output, he's definitely the man.
Well, I disagree with you there. Everybody has an input, and everybody's opinion has value, and everybody's opinion has a kernel of truth. And no matter if somebody vehemently disagrees with them or not, there's always a kernel of truth somewhere in a person's opinion, and just a matter of finding it. And I do agree that it's about resource distribution in the state of Texas and where is the best value. Like, I don't know if many people know, but Texas has one of the highest property taxes in the United States. And that's one of the reasons that we don't have a state tax. And that whole idea of that property tax is to go to the school district that you're associated with, because Texas has a huge amount of independent school districts that the property tax goes to. And so what happens is that, taxes are a pretty complicated thing. And I just looked at the data like on the top 1%. And what's interesting is now this is from Investopedia, so I got to check the data, but this is a good indicator. Don't pay too much to the numbers, but it's a good indicator. The top 1% in 2020 from to 2019, according to tax records, was an annual salary of $737,000 in the United States. Top 5% of earners was $309,000, and top 10% was $158,000 a year. Now, the top 1% since 1979 has increased 157.8%. So to give you an idea, that goes from basically the top 1% was like in 1979, it says was roughly about $88,000, and now it's up to $737,000 a year.
Let's do this, because I can see right now we're going to start going back and forth tagging things. Here's what we're going to do. For those of you who, like I said, who haven't seen some of the other things that I do, I'm hoping that some of you guys can catch me on LinkedIn, and I'll put a link to my LinkedIn as well. My LinkedIn is where I show people what I do professionally. A lot of it now is the expat relocation stuff that helps people get from their country to Brazil legally. And as I always say, don't just look at my resume. Don't even look at my resume first. I tell people to always go to my references, because that's where the money is made. These are the people that say he is who he says he is, hire him. And that's what I put there. The other thing, and some of you already know this, some of you are actually part of it, is we also have a Patreon group where we talk about things that are a lot less fun than what we're doing right now. We'll be on tomorrow. We'll have our roundtable. But the Patreon group is where we put a lot of business information. It's where we put a lot of those things that we talk about on the how and why of nuggets of how money is made and how we do business with each other and for each other. And I'm looking forward to all you guys popping in there as well. Let's see if I can pop that up on the screen. In any case, unless you two guys, do either of you guys have any sign-off words?
No, I misstated the income on one thing, but you can look it up on Investopedia. So, but no, I mean, I just appreciate talking to people and sharing my story. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And since we're talking about generating revenue, I'm consider opening an OnlyFans page. No, I'm just fucking with you. I'm joking.
Are you gonna do that Okay.
You might mess up my algorithm by saying shit like that. That's why I can't trust you guys.